Let's talk with Joseph in Kansas. Joseph is a theist who has questions about free will and lack of agency, which sounds very interesting. Joseph, welcome to the show.
Hi, V. Hi, Eric.
Hello.
Hello. What's your question for us today?
I guess I just wanted kind of to get your opinion. I called in maybe a month or two ago with a vaguely similar question.
Okay.
And during that conversation, Eric brought up that, if tomorrow someone was able to 100% prove that free will doesn't exist and we're all just, meat robots, then it probably wouldn't really affect your day-to-day life.
Okay.
Which I'm prone to agree with. But I guess when I very first sort of discovered some of the more, philosophical and deeper conversations regarding free will, it was, I feel like, and maybe this is just the barrier of language because, you can only talk about free will in certain ways. Sorry, excuse me.
That's okay. You couldn't help it. Go for it.
I guess it's just the barrier of language that makes, when people talk about not having free will, it makes me think, no one has ever made a choice ever in their entire lives ever. And not just for the more mundane things. Like if I'm having a conversation about free will with someone and the person I'm having the conversation with is saying we don't have free will, then I'm not, personally offended, but the thing that comes to mind for me is my dad passed away a few years ago, and at his funeral, it was a hot day at his funeral, and I wore a heavy wool sports jacket to his funeral because I was one of his pallbearers, and that was a birthday present that he had given me several years prior.
Aww.
And
Joseph, we're sorry to hear that, by the way.
And I decided, that morning, it's really hot, but I don't care. I'm going to wear this heavy wool jacket because it's one of my favorite gifts that my dad has ever given me. And when you talk about free will and not having free will, it almost seems like, did you really make that choice though?
Well,
you know what I mean?
So I guess the question is, does it matter? Let's say that you have the illusion of free will. If it's an illusion, does that really change it? My first thought of it is, let's say you made a lot of little tiny robots and you put them in a pen together, and these, gosh, I keep putting things in pens in my examples lately, but yeah, you got
babies, robots.
Yeah. So you got your little pen of meat robots, and they're all functioning just fine, but one of them is going around destroying the others. Do you allow it because it didn't have the free will, or do you go, I should isolate this thing? This thing should not belong in the pen, right? So I start with something really basic like that, and then see how far it moves out before it starts getting really weird, and then I challenge my assumptions. And so,
sure,
if we were to go, okay, does it matter if the robot chose to destroy the others or if it was bad programming? Not really. The effect is still the same. And if we were to, let's say we didn't have free will, but we do look for justifications for our own actions after the fact. I think that we often do that, period. It's why did you choose this? I don't know. I guess I chose lemonade because I was thirsty, and lemonade is refreshing. But
sure.
Just because we apply justifications or anything like that, I don't think that it really matters. This idea that that we would be without blame. Do you think that we would be not responsible for our own actions if we didn't have free will?
Not really. I'm not sure. That's a good way to look at it. But just
finish your point.
To backtrack to what you said is just,
sure.
I guess your mention of the illusion of free will, that's a matter of, even if it is an illusion, it's an illusion that I'm perfectly comfortable with. Because
Go ahead.
It's like the question of hard solipsism. We might all be brains in a vat, but I don't think we are, and even if we are, I'm comfortable with believing that we're not.
So you'd stay plugged into the Matrix, is what you're saying.
I guess, but it's like it's just certain things are more comfortable, I guess.
Yeah, and Joseph, I also want to.
And I suppose that gets into the Matrix is a good comparison because that gets into the whole ignorance is bliss and wouldn't you rather know the truth sort of thing.
Right.
Oh, excuse me. I apologize.
So, Joseph, one thing that I would like to point out as well, I want to take this down a slightly different direction. You said you gave the example of picking out a hot wool sports coat because it was one of the favorite gifts that your dad gave you, right?
Right.
So I think a lot of the time, you're right, we think about free will in this way of, well, did I not have a choice to pick out that jacket as opposed to another one? And it might be more helpful to think about it in this way. Did you have a choice as to which of your father's gifts was your favorite, or which of your blazers in your closet was your favorite? Or was that something that just was?
Yeah, I guess because I suppose you don't really choose which one your favorite is. It just is.
Exactly. So what if we just went one step back? So instead of saying you had no choice but to choose that jacket because something else is moving your arms and your hands, it was you were always going to choose that jacket because that jacket is your favorite. And that is something that you didn't decide or choose, that just kind of was. And the reason that your dad probably got you that jacket had to do with values about whether, the warmth of the clothing or the look of the clothing or what you had said to him before. All of that factored into that decision, right? And all of those things were not choices. So sometimes when we talk about free will, we're not talking about, this hard determinism where everything is robotic. We're more discussing, okay, the decisions that you make are deeply impacted by things you don't have control over, like your preferences or your values or your favorite things. So what about that? Does that feel like it might kind of address that issue without removing the value of it?
Yes, because it was a good way to put it, because I guess that's where conversations about free will tend to, I don't know, just derail a little bit for me because as you said, hard determinism is kind of, it does feel like it sucks all the value out of everything. And I'm not one of the people who believes that, life necessarily has, some greater intrinsic value because God or whatever else gave it intrinsic value. But just to say, but saying the belief of not having free will and full determinism or determinism comes down to, no one's ever made a choice ever in their lives. So inherently nothing has value.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so I think that's actually kind of where I'm struggling myself, because it feels very similar. And Joseph, I don't know if you've had a deconversion or deconstruction experience where you thought about God one way before, and then you kind of came to the conclusion that maybe God is not what you initially thought. But for me, that's how I got to deism. Yeah, exactly. So you said it yourself. You said, well, I don't believe that God gives us all inherent value and that's why life has meaning, but I do put that on free will. And I think that's the next step, right? And that is the same struggle that a lot of people feel when we say God doesn't exist in the way that you think he does, and he is not responsible for meaning or the value of your life. That inherent kind of icky, like, ooh, but it should be, but like God should be the reason, because otherwise what reason would there be? Right? There's that instinct. And you and I have both felt that and then gotten past that. So my question is, it could be the same for free will. Doesn't have to be. I don't know. But why would you come up against that and back off instead of push through as you did with your God belief?
I don't know. I don't know. That's I don't know. That's it's just, I'll admit, I haven't gone too far down the rabbit hole regarding a lot of the different beliefs in free will, whether or not it is, determinism and materialism and all the different aspects. I haven't gone too far down that rabbit hole, I'll admit. So I guess it may just be a matter of ignorance, a matter of not having spent the time.
Yeah, and usually it is. Usually it's just I haven't actually read all of the things, and so I can't know yet. And that's a good place to be. That's fine. My only push for you is, you know how to do that. You know how to look at a topic, a big worldview changing topic, and say, the idea that this doesn't exist makes me feel really weird, but I'm going to pursue this anyway. Mm-hmm. And so I would encourage you and everybody else watching, even though I don't think we will ever know if we are indeed free or determined to do the things that we do, it should still follow that you're able and willing to look at that topic too, even if it would be world changing, and say, this makes me feel icky, but what if it was true? What would happen then?
Yeah, and as you're going along in your path, it might start feeling a little bit, there might be a little bit of despair there. You said that, there's this whole idea of like, a lot goes out the window as far as meaning and purpose and that kind of stuff, and value. And I highly suggest that as you're doing this, you also look into different ways that people look at value. Especially, I don't agree with Kant on a lot of things, but viewing people as the givers of value and purpose can help a lot when it comes to that.
Right, and I'm of that belief as well, that since there isn't necessarily an intrinsic value to life, value to the universe, then it has the value that you ascribe to it. Yeah. But I guess I still get tangled back into free will in that case, because if free will doesn't exist, then did you really give it value?
Well, not one that is not intrinsic value, no. But if you were to accept that nothing has intrinsic value and all there is to give it is extrinsic value, then yeah, why not? As much as it could,
Yeah, I guess.
Like if there's no free will, but you really like cheeseburgers, does that mean you really like cheeseburgers? Well, you do. Yeah, I guess as much as you can, it gets kind of sticky there, but it's a fun place to play.
Yeah, and that's it. Have fun. Play around in that space and see where it might lead you. It doesn't have to lead you anywhere. There's no moral should here, right? You should just explore this if it's interesting to you. And the only moral, or not even moral, the only thing that I would say as you're doing this is make sure that you're allowing yourself to have that experience and have that fun, and don't back off from it. Yeah. But Joseph, thank you so much for calling in again. This was a great conversation.
Yep. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
I like him.
Yeah.
I just, I don't know. I feel like I just kind of want to just say over and over again that if you believe that you have free will and you value something and you're worried that that's going to change, I don't believe in free will. And I value you, V, and I value Joseph, the caller we just had. And it's not an exclusively free will thing necessarily. I mean, it just, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. We don't need free will to have value in the same way we don't need a God to have value.
Damn straight.
Eric, who would you like to talk to next?
Ooh, let's see. I think I want to talk to. What do you think?
I mean, it's a very niche